At 5'11" and 195 pounds, Joe Sakic wasn't the biggest player in NHL history, but his wrist shot was one of the most feared in the league. But even more than his 625 goals, 1,016 assists, and 2 Stanley Cups, Sakic changed what it meant to be a hockey captain. Super Joe was every young player's role model. Players today still copy his quick release shot, hoping to score like him. And even though he was so quiet that teammates joked about never hearing his voice in the locker room, in 2001 he created one of hockey's most emotional moments. Instead of lifting the Stanley Cup first as team captain, he handed it to Ray Bourque, who had waited 22 years to win his first championship. This one moment showed exactly who Sakic was, a superstar who cared more about his teammates than his own glory. And if you think that moment was special, wait until you hear the full story. Hit that subscribe button right now, because we're about to show you how the quietest player in NHL history became one of its greatest leaders. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. The Quebec Nordiques were so bad in the late 1980s that fans stopped coming to games. They lost 46 games in 1989. Back then, that was almost impossible to do. But those struggles got them Joe Sakic with the 15th pick in the 1987 draft, and everything changed. During his best years from 1995 to 2002, Sakic turned a team that couldn't win into the most feared group in hockey. They went from playing in a half-empty arena in Quebec to selling out every game in Colorado. And while other teams needed 3 or 4 stars to win championships, Sakic did something incredible. He led a group of players nobody expected to dominate, making the playoffs 11 years in a row. Every time people said he was too small or too quiet to be a leader, he proved them wrong by scoring the biggest goals when his team needed them most. The Quebec Nordiques were in such bad shape, they won only 12 games in the 1989-90 season. Their best player, Peter Stastny, was traded mid-season and fans were giving up hope. The team was losing millions of dollars playing in the NHL's oldest arena and struggling financially. But their terrible season didn't give them Joe Sakic. He had already been drafted in 1987. Most teams passed on him because they thought he was too small, but Quebec scouts saw something special. This quiet kid from British Columbia had scored 60 goals in junior hockey. While other teams wanted flashy players who talked big, the Nordiques bet everything on a player who barely spoke above a whisper. Nobody knew it then, but this 18-year-old would not only save the team, but help bring hockey to a whole new city. In his NHL debut, Sakic scored, making him one of the few players to do that in their first game. By his rookie season's end, he racked up 62 points. A significant achievement for a Quebec rookie. But the games that really showed what Sakic could do came against top teams. In his first matchup with Wayne Gretzky's Kings, Sakic had a standout performance while Gretzky was limited in points. That season, Sakic had a notable point streak, scoring in consecutive games. But the most eye-catching moment came when Quebec faced Montreal. In front of a hostile crowd, Sakic scored multiple goals on just a few shots. He became one of the youngest players to achieve such a feat in a road game. That night, Sakic also set a record for fastest multiple goals from the start of a game by a player under 21. During his first 5 years, Sakic's numbers were unreal. He put up 531 points, while the next closest teammate had just 289. He broke several team records, including most game-winning goals, most points in a month, and longest point streak. No player in NHL history had ever scored so many points for a team that missed the playoffs 4 straight years. By age 23, Sakic was named team captain, making him one of the youngest captains ever. While other young stars were known for their celebrations or trash talk, Sakic barely spoke. His teammates joked that you'd hear him talk more during one game than you would all month in practice. But when Montreal tried to sign him for a substantial amount in 1992, making him one of the highest paid players in hockey, Sakic turned it down to stay with his struggling team. The most incredible part of his early career was a stretch in 1991 where he scored at least 2 points in multiple consecutive games. Even more impressive, he did this while playing with a broken finger on his shooting hand. His coach tried to convince him to rest, but Sakic refused. "If I can hold my stick, I can play," was all he said. In those games, he scored numerous goals and added several assists, all while taking painkillers before each game. His dedication earned him respect across the league. Brett Hull, the NHL's top scorer at the time, said, "He's doing things with a broken finger that most of us can't do healthy." By the end of his 5th season, Sakic had already become the fastest player in team history to reach 500 points, and he did it on a team that was dead last in scoring. When Mark Crawford became Quebec's coach in 1994-95, things got tense right away. Crawford, fresh from coaching the Cornwall Aces in the AHL, wanted Sakic to change his playing style completely. "You're too nice on the ice," Crawford told him during their first meeting. "I need you to be more aggressive, more like Mark Messier." Sakic, who had already scored 105 points the previous season, didn't agree. In the first month under Crawford, Sakic scored only 4 goals, his worst start in years. The situation got worse when Crawford started benching Sakic in key moments, something no coach had ever done before. After the game, Crawford told reporters, "Until Joe buys into our system, we'll keep losing games." The team lost 5 of their first 6 games that season. But instead of fighting back, Sakic did something surprising. He started coming to practice 2 hours early to work with Crawford. The coach wanted him to shoot more, so Sakic practiced extra shots every morning. When Crawford asked him to be stronger on defense, Sakic studied video of defensive plays after every game. The turning point came during a heated team meeting in December. Crawford was yelling at the team about their poor play when Sakic, known for never raising his voice, stood up. "Coach is right," he said, shocking his teammates. "We either follow his system or we keep losing. I'm choosing to follow." From that day, everything changed. By January, Sakic was playing the best hockey of his career. He scored 32 points in 14 games, but more importantly, he was doing all the little things Crawford wanted. He was blocking shots, playing physical, and even got into his first NHL fight, something nobody ever expected from him. Crawford later admitted, "I was trying to change a great player into something he wasn't. Instead, he showed me how to make my system better." Their relationship became so strong that when the team moved to Colorado, Crawford fought to keep Sakic as captain when management wanted to give the C to a more vocal leader. "Joe leads by example," Crawford said. His quiet way turned out to be exactly what this team needed. Under their partnership, the team would go on to win the Stanley Cup in their first year in Colorado, with Sakic winning the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP. The 2001 season started with the Avalanche being called the team that couldn't win the big one. Despite having stars like Peter Forsberg and Patrick Roy, they had fallen short in previous playoff runs. But this year was different because Sakic was playing at a level nobody had ever seen. In the opening game against Vancouver, Sakic set the tone for the season. Down 3-1 in the third period, he took control, leading the team to a comeback win. The Vancouver coach put their best defender, Mattias Ohlund, on him for Game 2. It didn't matter. Sakic scored again and added multiple assists. The biggest test came against Detroit, their bitter rivals. The Red Wings had Scotty Bowman, the greatest coach ever, and a game plan designed to slow Sakic down. They rotated Steve Yzerman and Sergei Fedorov against him, trying to wear him out. In Game 3 at Detroit, the crowd booed Sakic every time he touched the puck. His response? He dominated the first period, silencing the entire arena, but it was Game 6 against New Jersey in the finals that became legendary. With his team facing elimination, Sakic played the entire third period with a broken finger after blocking a shot. The team doctor tried to take him out, but Sakic refused. "Just tape it up," he said. He then scored and set up the winning goal, forcing Game 7. In that Game 7, Devils coach Larry Robinson tried something new. He put both checking lines against Sakic's line. For 2 periods, they held him without a shot. But in the third period, with everything on the line, Sakic scored on his first shot of the game. A signature wrist shot so fast that Martin Brodeur, the best goalie in hockey, never even moved. His playoff numbers that year were historic. He led all players with 13 goals and 26 points. But what everyone remembers is what he did after winning. Instead of lifting the cup first, he handed it straight to Ray Bourque, who had waited 22 years for this moment. When asked about his incredible run, Sakic just smiled and pointed to his teammates. The quiet kid from British Columbia had just put together one of the greatest playoff performances ever, and he didn't say a word about it. The Avalanche averaged over 240 goals per season during Sakic's career, and he was responsible for a significant portion of them. His teammates rarely outscored him, while Sakic had 6 seasons over 100 points. In fact, only a few of his line mates made the Hall of Fame, yet Sakic made it in his first year of eligibility. People criticized him for being too soft. He had just 614 penalty minutes in 20 seasons, when most stars had that many in 1 year. Critics said a captain needed to be vocal, needed to call out teammates, needed to show more fire. But while other captains gave great speeches and threw teammates under the bus, Sakic just kept showing up early and staying late. Maybe he didn't scream at refs or fight in games, but this quiet guy from British Columbia was willing to play through broken bones to win. That's why he's still one of the most respected players in NHL history. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video about how a quiet kid proved all his critics wrong, Make sure to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what your favorite Sakic moment was.